Today, we're here to provide a review of the just released 2024 film adaptation of the Broadway musical Wicked, starring Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, and Michelle Yeoh.
The stage musical Wicked was actually based on the 1995 novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire, and it tells a prequel story based on L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, on which the 1939 classic that we all love, The Wizard of Oz, was based.
So is the 2 hour and 40-minute running time worth it? That's what we're here to tell you.
We'll have a non-spoiler review, and we'll also have a spoiler review later. This is our non-spoiler review. So check this out if you don't want any spoilers. And be sure to check out the spoiler review on the channel once you've seen the movie.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber.
So to not spoil it, I think the movie performed pretty well, first off, right?
Yeah,
in the
not
box
just
office.
Pretty well, like very, very well. Just for full disclosure, we have not seen Wicked the musical, neither have we read the book, so we don't know the full story of what happens in Wicked. And so all we know are the story details from The Wizard of Oz. That's what we knew going into this film, watching it. And now we know what Wicked Part 1 is, right?
Right, and I didn't know that they would be split up into two until after I seen this first one. So, yeah.
Well, you know, what's funny about that is, like, I think I found out the day before we watched it, but why did I not know all along that this was like a two-parter? Because I approach it differently. I was like, ooh, I can't wait to see Wicked. And then I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to know the whole thing. But then to find out it's two parts and I got to wait a whole year.
Yeah.
Because it's going to come out in November, part 2, November of 2025. That's like a year.
Let me tell you, I didn't even know Wicked existed. So Ever.
So you mean to tell me, okay, so you knew, so the two actresses that played Elphaba and Glinda, or Galinda, depending on which part of the film you're talking, or the play you're talking about, Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, you have seen them before, right?
Do what? I haven't seen them at all.
Okay.
I don't even know who they were.
Okay. All right. So I was familiar with them. I had heard of Wicked. And yeah, the funny thing is, back in the early 2000s, the commercial for Wicked, when it was playing, because at that point I was living in Chicago, the commercial for Wicked would come on, and then boom, I'd hear that song Popular. I'd hear that, right, as part of the commercial. So that's how I knew. So when we watched the film and you said, how do you know that song? It's because it was in the commercial for Wicked, the stage play or stage musical.
She was
right?
one of those people singing along. But
you can't, because it was like literally a short clip. I didn't even, and you know, I don't want to say I didn't care. And if I knew it was this good, I would have probably made the effort to go see it, and I would already know the whole story, but I didn't. And
so,
you know,
before we start, you must know that I'm not into musicals. I don't like musicals.
Right.
Because of the music, and I'm a musician. So anyway, probably odd.
It's like you don't seem to like the theater vocal style, like genre of music, like what it tends to be, like the show Glee, like you're not trying to watch that.
Right.
Okay, so let's get to a summary of the story, just basically. So Wicked tells the story of Elphaba, who eventually becomes the Wicked Witch of the West in Oz. This is the witch that, you know, is so famous from the Wizard of Oz movie that we all know, right? So she is a misunderstood young woman because of her green skin, and Galinda, a popular girl, becomes her friend at Shiz University in the Land of Oz. However, an encounter with the wonderful Wizard of Oz leads their friendship to a crossroad. And so, without giving away any real details, Wicked explores themes of things like good and evil and reputation and public perception and friendship, love, and what it means ultimately to be different in a world that seems to quickly otherize people.
So it's a musical, right? So the
Yes.
thing is that how much of the movie is just straight acting out the story and how much of it is incorporating song, right? Because like when you put a song in it, how much is it advancing the story? Because a song can stick on one idea for 5 minutes, sometimes longer, right? Instead, and if you were in a movie, maybe you have advanced it somehow, and sometimes the songs reiterate what we just saw.
Right. So I would say watching the movie Wicked, the songs are integral to letting you know how the characters feel, like in detail, you know. And for instance, obviously because Elphaba is green, there's this point where in a song that she's singing, there's a line in the song that talks about basically, you know, shouldn't people who are beautiful inside be able to be beautiful outside? Like, shouldn't they, shouldn't that just be able to match up?
Shouldn't a girl who's so good inside have a matching exterior?
Because in her mind, and because of the way people treat her, because she's green, you know, she's not treated as beautiful, and her looks get in the way of everything in her life. You know, but these are interesting questions. And if we weren't listening to the lyrics of the song, we wouldn't know this. And so I think in this movie, it is really important to listen to the lyrics of the song, which can be hard if you don't like the music.
But I disagree.
Okay.
Because I think all of those themes are summed up, like before I even get to the music. And if they're just reiterating, right? Because there was mentions of, and the actress expresses, right? When people mention her color and stuff, she expresses or emotes what she feels about it. And it's alluded to and talked about how she would like to change, and if she wasn't this color, basically.
But all of that is even in a song. She says it in the song. Now, we can guess that she wants to be different and all of that, and because of the great emoting that she does in her acting. But we hear the words. When she's singing the song, we hear her actually say the words. And I think that's a little bit different than her not saying those words.
But if I'm watching a different movie that's not a musical, and they're restating something that can, they can allude to, then I'm upset that they're stating it plainly. Right?
Right. But what I would also say is if you don't enjoy the music, then you may have a tendency to tune out the lyrics. You know, I will say that.
I do.
Well.
That's what I do.
So I think and we're going to see when we talk about this, you might have missed some of the story or, or just some finer details that are there, but we'll see. But in general, since we're on the subject of it being a musical and the music, overall, what did you think of the music?
I didn't like the music.
None of the songs.
I can say that I like Defying Gravity.
Mm-hmm.
I like mainly parts of Defying Gravity, right? Because it's like 5 songs in one, really.
Yeah.
And I just like it coupled with the visuals and all the direction and all that stuff that we're going to get into, right? I like how it was all put together. So maybe it makes me like the movie, or maybe what's going on in the movie made me like the song, or maybe it's intertwined where I end up liking both, right?
Yes.
But if someone just gave the song to me by itself, without seeing the movie, then I would listen and be like, all right, pretty cool song. But then when you add those visuals to it, the way they did, and we'll get into that, then it's just like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was very grand, and we kind of knew that it would be big, and it kind of had to be big, both the music and the visuals that go together, right? But what I will say is out of all of the songs, there are 3 songs that I really like, but of those 3 songs, I'm Not That Girl is the song that I like the whole song as a complete piece.
He could be that boy.
So now that you know what song we're talking about. So that is my favorite song as a whole piece. The majority of songs I like are the ones with Elphaba leading, with the exception of No One Mourns the Wicked. That song is actually sung by Belinda or Ariana Grande's character, right? But right now, No One Mourns the Wicked has me in the grips.
What?
Like, I have listened to that song about 500 times. when we watched the movie, I completely delayed going to Spotify and listening to the soundtrack because I knew that I would get in the grips, because I am like a theater person. I have always loved show tunes. My mother can attest to the fact that I probably drove her crazy as a kid singing Annie, when I was a little kid. She hated, the sun will come out tomorrow. She didn't want to hear none of that after Cheri was finished with it. But the thing you brought up about it being like 5 songs in one, this song, No One Mourns the Wicked, which is like the first song you hear in the whole movie, has a part. And the first time I heard it, it just touched me. What's going on in this part of the song, like that beat hit me, everything hit me. And that is my part of the song. Okay. But the whole song on Spotify is like 7 minutes long. Oh. But the more I've listened to it, because at first I was like, I'm only going to listen to the parts I like, which is split into these different parts that also include dialogue and stuff. And no one mourns the wicked. No one cries. They won't return. And I was kind of like, dang, can they just connect the parts so I can hear a song without it being the full, just basically everything you see on screen at the time, like 7 minutes long? Can we get it to just the song? Then I was like, can I get it to just the part of the song that I like? But no, that's what I'm left with. But then I started to appreciate the rest of the song. And one lesson I have here is because I feel like I did this with The Color Purple 2023 soundtrack and the songs there, is that I probably needed to digest the music a little bit more, because the more I listened to No One Mourns the Wicked, the more I heard extra lyrics, the more that I appreciated the entire piece, the whole 7 minutes. And now I'm listening to the whole 7 minutes each time.
Yeah, but when I listen to music, first off, I listen for enjoyment, right? So if it comes on and I'm not enjoying it, then I'm not just intently listening to it like that, even as a musician, right? And so none of the songs really touched me like that. But, after listening to Defying Gravity and then first thing I did was look up the composer and then go find interviews. And Stephen Schwartz does talk about that song in detail, surprisingly, because you never get this. And then he talked about just basically composing for the entire play and movie, basically, and what went into it. And I appreciate that part of it. But it still doesn't make me like the songs.
Okay, so let me tell you, here's another thing. And you didn't really believe me about this, but when I'm hearing the music, I'm hearing what is there, but I also am in my head like modifying it to better suit my own personal taste. And so what I'll say is, like, with certain of the songs, with probably most of them, I would have liked them to be a little bit more soulful than they are. Although I think that Cynthia Erivo strikes the perfect balance of soulfulness and a little extra that I like to see. So I don't really have any complaints about any of the songs that she sang, but some of the other songs and in the way that the cast is singing. And I know that is just the style. That is, what you come to expect from a Broadway musical style. And then, of course, a film adaptation. So I'm not really complaining, but in my head, I hear it differently. And I was able to illustrate that because I came across, is it James Corden who sings in the car with the people? So there was this one where he's singing in the car. It's Idina Menzel, who played the original Elphaba on stage, right, on Broadway. And they're all singing, and it's people in the car. But also Billy Porter is in this car. And when I tell you, when I hear the song, I hear like Billy Porter's ad-libs. This is how I hear the song in my own head. And I laughed because I was like, I know that I'm not the only one that just hears it differently. So I'm able to enjoy it because, like, I'm ad-libbing in my own head the potential of what I think the song could be more in the direction of my personal taste. And I know that sounds like weird. I don't know. Go to the comments. Does anybody else do that? Probably not. But when I was describing it, you were like, what do you mean? Because I kept saying to you, I did wish it was a little more soulful. And you were like, well, it's the other instruments in the songs, not that, because you went to piano on that
certain
song.
genre or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's like all of those markers, the melodies, the instruments, the extensions of the chords, the how you do it vocally, the vibrato, the riffs and runs, right? It's what make different genres. And so if I'm watching this musical and I hear dun 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 dun, then wait, this ain't the same thing. That's a different genre. You can't. Hip hop, you probably can, but you can't really take that and put it in a country song because then you're taking it out of that genre. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's how I look at it. But what about the dancing? I didn't like the dancing either.
Okay, so I wasn't really like up on the dancing. All of the, but see, this is what I think is great about this film is that it has something fangirl or fanboyish about all of these different aspects that can have people totally in the grips of this film.
Yeah.
So some people are like loving all the choreography and they're, all over TikTok, like doing the actual choreography. To me, I was like, all right, okay.
What I do, I trim out the fat, right? So I take the movie, remove all the songs and the dancing, the stuff that's not. If I'm just walking around in my normal life, people don't just jump out, start singing and dancing. So that's the stuff I'm cutting out of the movie when I'm thinking about the movie. It's except the last song because.
I feel like you can't pare it down.
That's the only one that advances the stuff. It's the last song.
I think that's
part
a
of the
disconnect
story.
for you. I think you missed it because you just didn't like the music. And so, to me, I'm like,
what did I miss?
Okay, so let's take the first song. The first song is No One Mourns the Wicked. That's the first song. So Galinda comes down on her bubble and everything, and she's singing, right? But at the same time, it's kind of their version of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, right? Because they're talking about the Wicked Witch of the West, Elphaba, being dead at this point. And so she's singing in this operatic style, high voice, and she's singing about how no one mourns the wicked, and goodness knows that the wicked, they are lonely, they have lonely lives, and that they die alone, right? And we're not going to get into too much discussion, but that is what happens.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a spoiler to say. But so she does that, but then somebody asks, "Hey, weren't you friends? Didn't you know her?" Right? And then they get into, and then the movie shows me this, right? I don't need that song.
So I feel like it's the feelings of it, and then when you see what's happening in the film and you go back and reflect on what you had seen earlier, then it gives it even more. Like you legit are singing, you are singing about somebody in a way that is just completely inappropriate given what we find out, and
well,
we don't know what happens in part 2, but in part 1. Let's just say, it's just,
I understand that.
So,
because something just happened recently that I won't mention, but yeah, that's how people are. No one mourns the wicked.
And then I started feeling those lyrics. Because I was like, you know what? That is so true. So not to analyze it through the plot line so much as it's relatable because everybody in their lives looks around and they see things that seem wrong or evil or wicked or just, bad. And then you look and then the people who are like that, man, maybe they do die alone. Maybe their lives are lonely in their misery. We talk about that all the time. We talk about how, what misery loves company. They love company. Why? Because they're lonely to begin with. They're lonely sitting in their stew. And so there's just so much commentary in this entire film that is just oh my goodness. So, so to me, this is the significance. And then I kind of like the part of that song. So then I started to repeat it because there were things that I had ignored in there and it's starting to give you questions and answers. And it made me think about other stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm agreeing with this. Then you have other songs that's talking about how the characters feel at any given time when you meet somebody and then it's your friend or whatever, or somebody who's a potential friend, but y'all are like oil and water. And so it's how will we coexist? These questions of life, right? And so all of it is just a great, to me, commentary on this stuff. But if without the music, I don't think you, in this case, and probably in a lot of cases, I feel like you can't, I just wouldn't separate the music. Now, some of the musical numbers maybe didn't have to be as long, because to me, I wasn't as into all of the choreographed dance stuff, but I guess, because the movie was 2 hours and 40 minutes.
So there's other people who may say you need those dances too. That's going to convey things that you're missing by.
Sure. So. I'm open to that. I'm open to that. But just like you were hey, I could have done without the song. I'm I didn't have to see as much dancing. I'm cool with seeing a little bit, But, you know, do we have to draw it out for that long?
So
I don't know.
Without it being a Broadway musical and, you know, having music and stuff, we would never see the movie though, right? I don't think. Because that's what makes them want to make it and bring it and why people love it and want to go watch it. Otherwise,
right.
you know, we don't even get to see this.
Yeah, I mean, because
I'm not just going to get the book.
It is a flex of skills. It is just a straight up flex of vocal skills. And, you know, I mean, because to me, Cynthia Erivo,
yeah,
just, you know, I don't even know that there's a criticism I could have about any way she delivered any song. And I'm going to tell you, here's how you know. Granted, she is a professional, but every person I hear sing or attempt to sing Defying Gravity sounds like they are yelling. Now, it can be a beautiful voice sounding like it's yelling, but it sounds like they're yelling. Whereas in her version of Defying Gravity, you really don't feel like she's yelling until her final. I heard it described as a war cry, right? Most of people have heard her version of the song with her adapted run at the end. That is where she sounds like it. But the rest of it is completely controlled. Like her instrument vocally is just amazing.
That part at the end, Stephen Schwartz called his most famous lyric.
And it's not even a word. But and this is the thing we both caught when we were listening to it. I was like, they left that big old breath in there, right?
It's a big old breath.
You're making me choke up.
Oh, man. There's a big breath right before there, and yeah, I just hear it every time. Yes. What about them saying that, you know, hey, they sung everything live? I was
just going to say that. So to be clear, though, they sung everything live so that what they're doing in the moment looks great, but what you're hearing is still the pre-recorded stuff, to be clear.
Oh, so did they say that it was the pre-recorded stuff?
Some people from the production did clarify that.
Okay.
So, and I don't remember if it was John Chu, the director, who said it, but somebody said it. But, you know, when you watch the interviews with Cynthia and Ariana Grande, when you watch them, they're emphasizing the fact that they sang through the whole thing. But I think it's because it's also saying, like, we did basically just like we would have done if we were on Broadway singing this.
Yeah,
so,
because Cynthia Erivo is talking about how the harnesses and stuff restricts her breathing and stuff. I'm like, I don't care. You ain't even got to sing it live in a movie. You know what I'm saying? If it's restricted and you don't sound the greatest on set and I don't hear that take, as long as it looked like you singing it good.
Well, and I think it was like, hey, I want the veins on my neck to pop out, and I want you to see the big breath that I took. It could pop out and you still sound bad, right? Well, yes. So, you know.
But she was training to be able to sound good in a situation where we wouldn't hear her.
That's because she's just such a professional.
She's extra.
She probably was like, look, maybe there are some parts where it is their live
I think it is.
You know,
and I think she say it's kind of like, I'm going to be so good that they're going to use my take on set.
And you know what? She probably was. They might have had to dub in some stuff for other people. So then they say, hey, you know, it's not all. But like, I believe every minute when you look at how she trained, how she did everything else. And and you know, the natural thing is just to compare the vocal stylings of Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo with what we saw with the original cast. Because, of course, there have been many other Broadway casts and since the original, like with Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel. There were many casts in the meantime.
Yeah, so I listened to those, but then when I listen to them, I listen to the mixes.
And it's hard.
The mixes are different, too. And their vocals, the recent vocals on the modern version, there's some harsh frequency in there that I just don't like. That's not in that original one. And that's sort of things I'd be listening to, like, ugh.
Yeah, I think I don't hear that in the newer ones. What I would say is it's hard because we're comparing like people's cell phone videos a lot of times and other stuff because, you know, it is Broadway. So it's not like some official recording. Now,
I listen on Spotify. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Those
so I
versions.
did listen to that, but I also like seeing them at the same time. So yes, so you're right. What I will say is Kristen Chenoweth, because I mean, she, you know, she's played in a lot of stuff and, you know, animated things and whatever along the way. And a lot of those, you know, Disney songs and stuff like that. And, you know, of course, the songs from Frozen, that was Idina Menzel, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that. But so these women have amazing voices and have had wonderful careers based on their voices. But I just got to keep going back to Cynthia Erivo, but I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to dwell too much on the music. But I will just say, to me, the music was good. And the grace that I'm giving on the music is just that there are aspects of it where I wished it was more soulful, but I accept it for what it is. And in general, when it's not, the soul music that I like, it's, that's it. But let's get to our rating, our proprietary rating system that Heit has put together for us, where we actually give a star rating to 6 categories of the film. And so let's start with the plot of the movie.
Ooh.
What did you think of the plot?
So first coming in, right? I know of The Wizard of Oz, and I know that plot. So to be like, on our other channel, Axiom Amnesia, we do fan theories and stuff, right? So it's kind of like, oh man, it's a different take on this. Or how you do a prequel and now we got to see how we get to whatever. I like that aspect. So I don't go into it not knowing anything, right? So if I'm watching like Lord of the Rings or, Harry Potter or something, when I go in, I don't know anything about it.
Right.
But I go into this one and I'm knowing, and I'm like, oh, this is an interesting take now because it's providing me some background on what's going on. And then, with this take of, good versus evil, what is good, what is evil, and the people who become basically enemies, right? Because we see this all the time. And I think they do deliver it. Now, finding out that it's 2 parts, it doesn't change that for me, right? Because I'm like, okay, they did cut it off on a good spot. And some people might disagree, right? I think you kind of disagree. Maybe.
No, I just wanted to see the part 2.
Yeah, but I think like, okay, they stopped it at a nice, good point for me. And that's a good conclusion. If they didn't tell me it was a part 2, I'd be like, dang, that was good. That was great. And without the songs and everything,
But this is the part where it stops and where it's the end of the first act of the film.
The first act, because there's 2 acts in the musical.
The act of the actual musical, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
They didn't really have to think too hard on that, but yeah, but you touched on something talking about fan theories and the idea that Wicked is really it is a fan fiction, fan theory-ish type of thing. It is an entire speculation based on characters with whom we are already familiar from a classic, right? But the way that people have interpreted this, and this is an issue I have with the way they interpret our fan theories as well, is that it is just another story,
right.
But they make it like from the beginning, this is what was intended by the original author.
I don't go off and alter the original meaning of The Wizard of Oz because I've seen Wicked.
Right.
But I hope that it fits in so perfectly that
it could.
Yeah.
And this really does. I think in a lot of ways, but from an artistic perspective, I do wonder. And, when we present our fan theories, we're always quick to say, we're not saying this was the intention, because people will respond to the fan theory and say, hey, we should just ask the director. We should just ask the writer. Is this what it is? But see, as viewers of the art, we get to interpret the art however we want. And so when Maguire wrote Wicked the book, he got to interpret it how he wanted, and he wrote the book that he wanted to write. But it's not it's not equivalent in the same way, because he didn't make up these characters. So there's it is a derivative work of sorts. And it doesn't create what they call like canon, right? It could be if you go down that path, but like that is just like a alternate universe, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know what else, the guy who wrote the Wonderful Wizard of Oz might have intended. And this probably wasn't it, but it's a damn good story.
So what I can tell you what I don't like, and it's to be continued, part 1, is it ended well, but so their relationship and them breaking up didn't seem like it was a real breakup. It didn't seem like they should be polar opposites. And the storyline, because that's the main thing, right? How did she become wicked, the Wicked Witch? And then part of it is Elphaba's attachment to the plight of the animals wasn't strong enough for me to see that basically how much she gave up for that. right? And where she ended up in the end. It didn't give me enough of that. It was kind of really like an interaction with one person, and that same thing on the part of Glenda, right? Her interaction with the one green person, right?
Yeah.
And Elphaba's interaction with the one goat, right? And
Yeah.
then that just make it seem
But
I need more.
Elphaba was raised by a bear nanny.
Yeah.
So, you know, she had animals around her.
Yeah, but I'm saying like I need it to be stacked up like you stacked up these songs.
Right.
You know
okay.
what I'm
Yeah, I
saying?
hear you. So what score would you give the plot?
I would give the plot about a 7.
Okay. Yeah.
Because of the whole part 2 part, and maybe that stuff, you know, we get more of it in part 2, but as Wicked by itself, part 1, yeah, that's pretty good. But
I'm going to give it a 9.
I knew you would.
So I definitely give it a 9 because it was practically perfect to me. And even just part 1, since we don't know, you know, what's happening in the whole story.
I guess we can move on to what just a pure entertainment aspect, because we talk a lot about that, whether or not it's entertaining. I think it's okay. I'm going to dock points because of the parts that I don't like, and that's the music. The whole entertainment thing, I was entertained by it. I was waiting to see what happens next, and that's pretty much what it comes down to me when it comes to entertainment. I want to know what happened next. Am I anticipating something? Am I predicting what happens? It's kind of predict some parts, or like, yeah, I predict this is going to happen. And yeah, so with that, I give it about a 6.
All right. So for entertainment, you'll probably guessed it. I'm giving it a 10. I'm giving it a 10.
Yeah, I think
You
most
know?
people who like it, that's, you know,
It's
they
getting
were
a 10.
they were in that world.
I am
completely.
in that world. Like I am. While we were watching it, I wasn't as much in the world. I was just kind of taking in everything. But then watching it again, then singing, you know, and getting into the music and everything like that. Yeah, I'm in it now. We were in Target the other day and I was like, yeah, I'm going to need like a Shiz University sweat hoodie or sweatshirt. And then they had these, you know, kind of like leisure outfits and stuff. And I was just like, I'm not a cosplay person, but I'm seriously contemplating it at this point.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's my look at the entertainment. And then we can quickly just talk about sound. I'm giving the sound a 10 because, you know, the sound also for me was amazing because
Okay.
I'm giving the grace for the music.
I'm not. So the thing, okay, I'm going to say it's a 10, but
You deduct in points.
they had that breath in there, so you get a 9.
Oh my gosh. How is, listen.
I don't even remember if the breath is in the movie.
Everything else was
but-
a 13. So like even if you deducted, you still be at a 10. I can't believe you did that.
You
but-
remove a whole 9. I'm just joking, but it's a 9, right?
Okay, so you're
I
gonna
could give
a
it
9.
less because I don't like the songs, and like I say, some of those some of those harsh frequencies in those vocals is well, not harsh. It's just not to my liking. Is what I would say.
Okay. So to me, you know, obviously it's a 10. Heit says sound is a 9. So let's just quickly talk about cinematography then too. If I look at the cinematography, I feel like that's a 10 as well. And I'm telling you, these are high scores because if you look at other stuff that we have rated along the way, it definitely was not this high. But cinematography, I love the angles. You know, there's points where, you know, you have like what would be like drone shots and flyover shots. And we even watched some of the behind the scenes, how they had to grow a bunch of tulips and stuff. And
I think that taints it for me, right? Like I'm taking into consideration, like a jury, things I should not be taking into consideration. Now I'm thinking about, dang, how they accomplished these things too. You know what I'm saying? But I still will give them a 10 on the cinematography because it's just amazing. They got green screens, they got everything, they got rotating sets and all kind of stuff. And yeah.
well, let's talk about the acting next. to me, okay, so we obviously talk about Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo. Both of them were excellent. Actually, I love that Ariana Grande brought, and humor was part of Galinda's character, even in the stage play. And I love how she played the, the little humorous parts of her character. And then I love how that was up against a lack of humor, really, with Elphaba, right? It just worked. It was like they really were very opposite from one another. And it was so obvious. But the acting for both of them, I just, it's stellar. I want to see Cynthia Erivo. It's time to get the EGOT at this point because you need an Oscar for this right here. But she already got the Oscar. What are we waiting on? Are we waiting on the Oscar? I don't remember now. Actually, you know what?
The
No.
Oh, the
she
Emmy.
got the Tony,
the Emmy,
right?
probably.
She got the Tony and the Emmy, so she's waiting on the Oscar. That's what it is.
Wait, she's
waiting on the
don't have
Oscar
an
because
Oscar.
everything else was stage plays.
Oh,
The
because she
Emmy-
wasn't. Well, did the Color Purple win anything?
Yeah, well, she won. So the Emmy was for a performance from The Color Purple, and her Tony was for The Color Purple. Yes, that performance was on TV. And then obviously her regular performance, which she got the Tony for, was, on Broadway or whatever. And so, yeah, so I want to see an Oscar for this. There should be Oscars for this film. And if there aren't, then
it's going to probably.
we're
leave.
going to have a reckoning.
Well, I don't care about no rate. What do you rate it, though?
So I mean, 10. The
Okay.
acting is a 10.
It's
And then
not,
I
but-
also want to bring up the fact that, you also have Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum and other actors as well. And they were all good. And I really thought that, that was good. And I especially, Jeff Goldblum is always good in everything he does. And he's a smart actor also, which is very,
Yeah.
appealing when you watch his
So,
work.
The actors are good. The main ones, the 4 main ones. I think you just mentioned the 4 of them. And Ariana Grande might not be on their level to me, right? But because they threw that humor in there and she had that hair flip, head swing, lean back thing,
Yeah.
she get points for that. So she pulled that one off because it looked like you was doing something.
It looked like what
all
it
right,
was
you pulled
supposed
it
to
off
look
every
like.
time. Yeah, every time you do that, I'm like, all right, I get this. And it wasn't over because some things, it's a novelty, right? And you should only do it one time. She done that about 8-9 times, right? So I give it about a 9 because, those people you named just
Yes.
killed it. And anybody else, they can't really take away from that. Oh, and the young Elphaba.
Oh, yeah.
man.
Yes.
Just her facial expressions just sold it.
Good. And that's the thing I loved about Cynthia Erivo, although she's a much more experienced actress. Just how just a little tweak of her lip or it curls up just slightly or just the small things that she does that are just so telling and she never has to overact. Like she's just really good. So let's talk about editing. What did you think of the editing?
The editing, because I know what it take, is probably amazing. So I think it was Avid. I don't know if they actually did it, but Avid, it's a software company, media software company. They put out an image of what is supposedly the editing timeline for Wicked using their media composer or whatever software they have for editing. And I'm just like, I can't do that. I'm not doing that. Right? Even though we edit videos and all this. And I know what it takes. And I didn't see anything major that was just like, dang, y'all messed this up. Like even with the animals and stuff, it's like, okay, that looks like what it should look like in whatever land this is, Munchkin Land or wherever they are in Shiz or wherever. So the editing, I'll give them a 10 for that because, yeah. How could you not, unless you are a super editor who, you know what I'm saying? That's the only way you can probably.
And the editing and the direction to me was just amazing. I mean, I will definitely give it a 10 as well. Not surprising to most of you listening at this point.
Bruh.
But what I would also say is there's like a scene, even just from the beginning, where you're getting those flyover shots, where you're getting, there's one where they're under the water. And then when they come out of the water, you're looking up at Galinda in a boat or gondola, whatever you call it. And she's going in to Shiz University, right? And that is just a really good shot. And I noticed it not the very first time that I watched it, but I did notice it one of the next times. And so, yeah. Gotta love this.
So Cheri rates it a 9.7.
That's almost a 10. That's the highest rating I think I've ever rated.
I'm
a film.
sure. and I rated it 8.3.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there you have it.
So do you think it's worth the watch? Would you recommend that
Yeah.
people watch it?
So, yeah, but I wanted to see it because I don't know when I heard about it. Maybe we were in theater and a trailer came on.
Yeah.
Maybe 3-4 months ago.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right. And it looked like it would be what it is, right? This just spectacle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, I want to see how they do this, right? I didn't know anything about it. I don't know. Like, I just knew nothing.
It lived up to the hype, I feel like. And it's definitely worth the watch. I would say, you know, if you can, maybe go at a time where it's not going to be super crowded, which by now, I mean, it's still in theaters and running a lot, but it's not nearly as crowded as it was, you know, opening week or two. You know, we're a couple weeks out from opening. So, you know, that makes a difference in how crowded the theaters are. And we're lucky enough to live someplace where people just, I don't know, they don't seem like they're really in the theater all that much. And then, you know, if they're running the movie, you know, every hour or two, then, you know, you could probably go in there and not have many people at all by now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. So, like, when it comes to these musicals and stuff, yeah, I don't be into that. I be trying to go the other way. I don't want to watch them.
So as you could tell, like I think that there's a reason so many people were emotional. This brings out a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
This is a very relatable film because everybody has felt like they're different in some way that they hold on to
Everybody.
and carry on their shoulders. Even the people we look at and are like, oh my God, you have everything. What are you complaining about?
So if you made it this far into this video, type lean back in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now.